Nominations for the 81st Annual Hugo Awards were announced on July 6th. And I want to see who the nominees are with you because I am Daisy Ex Machina, the drag queen detective who investigates all things speculative in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. The Hugo Awards are probably the most prestigious science fiction awards, being the oldest. The nominations are submitted through votes by members of the World Science Fiction Society, who are the superfans of speculative fiction. And winners are chosen by those members who can attend the annual Worldcon convention, this year hosted in Chengdu, China. And it's during the third week of October. Of course, ever since COVID, I believe you can attend virtually and vote. Even though the Hugo is pretty darn important in the speculative fiction community, I think writers may actually be more honored by the nebulas, which are voted on by the Science Fiction Writers Association, so it is their peers voting for the best work of that year. By the way, you'll notice everything is called science fiction. World Science Fiction Society, Science Fiction Writers Association, and so on, because when these organizations were formed, it really was just for science fiction, because the fantasy genre really didn't come into itself until the 60s or really the 70s. So science fiction here is more of a legacy term that includes all speculative fiction. Anyway, the Hugos are a big deal. So without further ado, let's look at the nominees for 2023. I have up here the Tor.com site with the announcement by Molly Templeton. And first up is Astounding Award for Best New Writer. Now, I don't recognize any of these writers except for Travis Baldree, who I know wrote Legends and Lattes, which is that cozy fantasy. And he has a really interesting story, very inspirational, because Legends and Lattes was an indie published. He published it himself, and it became so huge that a major publisher, I guess, gave him a very good offer for this book and a sequel or whatever. So it's a really great story. Anyway, Travis Baldree, only one I know. I hope he wins. Next up is Lodestar Award for Best Young Adult. Akata Woman by Nnedi Okorafor. The only thing I've read by Okorafor is Noor, and I wasn't that impressed by it. And I think part of that was there was just so much hype for this author that it was a lot to live up to. And I probably should have read one of their more popular works rather than Noor. But anyway, that's that. Then we have Blood Marked by Tracy Deonn, and I have read the first book in this series, Legendborn. It's sort of this retelling of King Arthur, or actually King Arthur inspired in the setting of North Carolina or South Carolina among a young black woman. It was actually a very good series, or a very good first book. Then we have Dreams Bigger Than Heartbreak by Charlie Shade Anders. I read All the Birds in the Sky. I've not read any of Anders' young adult books, didn't even know they wrote young adult, so interesting. The Golden Enclaves by Naomi Novik, I have read. And I was a little disappointed in the series as a whole because I really liked the first book. But what I will say is I am very surprised to see it under young adult because it was marketed as an adult book. I know in Shove It or Shove It, I picked it up and it was in the adult section. And I think most of Naomi Novik's readers are adults, so that's why they marketed it to the adult audience. But here we are seeing it under young adult. So then In Serpent's Wake by Rachel Hartman, have not read it. Osmo Unknown and Eight Penny Woods by Catherine M. Valente. Name's familiar, but I can't recall anything. I'm going to say I hope that the Tracy Dion wins, so good luck. Next we have Best Fan Artist. I don't know anything about this category, so if you do, feel free to pause here and look at the nominations. Same thing for Best Fan Writer. Next we have Best Fan Cast, which are like podcasts, but it also includes Kalinati, who was nominated last year, who I know is a booktuber. So go Rachel. Next we have Best Fanzine. I don't know this one either, so feel free to pause. Best Semiprozine. I'm not sure what that means. What is a semiprozine? Best Professional Artist. Don't know that one. Feel free to pause. Best Editor Long Form. Best Editor Short Form. Again, I'm just not going to read these because I don't know the industry that well to recognize who editors are. Best Dramatic Presentation Short Form. Okay. There are 2 Andor nominations, and which is the Star Wars series that streamed on Disney. I saw it. I thought it was okay. I wasn't connecting with the main character. I don't know if it was the actor or how he was written. So I found the series a little dry for me, but I know some people love it. The Expanse. I love The Expanse. Love the book series, but I also really enjoyed the Amazon Prime series that started on Sci-Fi Channel but switched to Prime. Next, For All Mankind, Stranger in a Strange Land. I don't know this. Is this Heinlein? Did someone do Heinlein? Okay. Let me look up what For All Mankind, Stranger in a Strange Land is, because I am really curious. Okay, I have the Wikipedia article up, and it says it's a science fiction series on Apple TV, alternate history about what happens if the global space race had never ended, which really sounds interesting, except I don't have Apple TV. There's just too many streaming shows. So let me know down in the comments if you've seen it and if it's any good. Then we have She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. Now, I did see this one, and it was also streaming on Disney, and I love the lead actress, Tatiana Maslany, something like that. And she was also the star on Orphan Black, where she had to play all these different personalities. I highly recommend that if you're into science fiction series. But anyway, She-Hulk, I liked it. I thought it was funny. I thought it was clever. I know some people didn't like it, but should it win Best Dramatic Presentation? Probably not, but I did like She-Hulk. And last, Stranger Things, which is, of course, the Netflix show that's a horror inspired from the 80s and Stephen King. Anyway, of all these, I hope The Expanse wins. I love The Expanse. Next, Best Dramatic Presentation Long Form, which looks like movies, because we start with Avatar: The Way of Water. And I have to admit, I did like it. And I know it's like a big budget, big studio production, and part of me doesn't want to like it, but I credit where it's due. It's a great movie. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, I thought was a little disappointing for me. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, my favorite movie. Yes, 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 and yes. Nope, written by Jordan Peele. And I don't know that one. I'm assuming it might be a horror because he did Get Out, which, by the way, Get Out has some Lovecraftian references that I thought were great. Severance by Dan Erickson. Don't know this one at all. And Turning Red. Don't know this one either. Oh, but it's a Pixar. I may have heard of that on Pixar. But anyway, I don't care. Everything, everywhere, all at once. That one should win. Fantastic science fiction, fantastic acting, and I love the story of the Chinese immigrants. Next is Best Related Work, and I'm not sure what that means. Actually, I think it means it's nonfiction about science fiction. So we have Blood, Sweat, and Chrome, the wild and true story of Mad Max, Fury Road by Kyle Buchanan, Buffalito World Outreach Project by Lawrence Schoen. I don't know any of these. Chinese Science Fiction Oral History by Yang Feng, The Ghost of Workshops Past by S.L. Huang, Still Just a Geek, an annotated memoir by Will Wheaton, and Terry Pratchett, A Life with Footnotes by Rob Whitkins. I haven't read any of these, not that interested in anything. Kind of curious about the Terry Pratchett biography, but I'm not big on nonfiction. Best graphic story or comic. I just don't read comics anymore. I used to be a big aficionado, but that was 20, 30 years ago. So go ahead and pause it here if you're interested in this category. I can't really comment on anything. Next, we have Best Series, Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Now, I've just finished the Final Architect series, which I thought was fantastic, and I wouldn't mind seeing that one here, but I don't know Children of Time. I'm assuming it's equally good or better. I don't know. The Founders Trilogy by Robert Jackson Bennett. Don't know it. The Locked Tomb by Tamsin Muir. I think this is a fascinating series and really special in terms of the writing. Each novel in the series is written in a completely different voice. Love this series. Well, I didn't really like the second book that much, but overall, I like the series. October Day by Shannon McGuire, big name. Rivers of London by Ben Aronovich. Don't know it. And The Scholomance by Naomi Novik, which I said I read thinking it was an adult book, and I still think it's an adult book, but it's interesting seeing it here. Overall, I don't think the series holds up. Of these series that I know, The Locked Tomb by Tamsin Muir definitely, I think, should win. Best Short Story. Now, these next couple of categories, I don't really read short fiction that much, except once in a while I'll pick up a novella thinking it's a novel because they don't seem to distinguish them on Goodreads. So, yeah. But first, let me pull up the definition of what constitutes short story, novelette, and novella. Okay, here on Readsy, we have some definition. Short story is less than 7,500 words. Novelette is 7,700 to 17,500. We're missing 200 words in there, but whatever. Novella is 17,500 to 40,000. And of course, anything over 40,000 words is novel. So going back to the nominations under short story, again, I haven't read these. I may recognize the authors, and I'll let you know if I do, but I probably haven't read any of these short fictions. Anyway, DIY by John Wisewell, On the Razor's Edge by Jang Bo, Rabbit Test by Samantha Mills, Resurrection by Ren King, and The White Cliff by Lou Ban, and Zhurong on Mars by Regina Canyu Wang. Don't know any of these authors. Best Novelette. The Difference Between Love and Time by Catherine M. Vellante. A Dream of Electric Mothers by Wool Talabi. If You Find Yourself Speaking to God, Address God with the Informal You by John Chu. Murder by Pixel, Crime and Responsibility in the Digital Darkness by S.L. Huang. The Space-Time Painter by Hai Ya. And We Built the City by Marie Vibert. Don't know these either. If you do, let me know in the comments and let me know which ones were good. For novella, Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk, Into the Riverlands by Niveau, and I have read Niveau book before, which, again, I wish I read the popular Nevo book rather than the one I read about. It's called Siren, and not my favorite book. Anyway, A Mirror Amended by Alex Harrow, Ogres by Adrian Tchaikovsky, What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, Where the Drowned Girls Go by Shannon McGuire. So, of course, I know Nevo, Tchaikovsky, Kingfisher, and McGuire. T. Kingfisher is someone I've just recently started reading because I've heard so much about their works, and I read The Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, which I absolutely loved. And I wanted to read a horror, and I picked the wrong horror because it wasn't that great of a book, The House with Good Bones. I wish I picked up a different T. Kingfisher, but I'm definitely going to read more of that author. And of course, Shannon McGuire is a well-known author who I've read several things by, but I haven't read any of these novellas, so no opinion. Now on to the main event, what everyone looks at, Best Novel. The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Sylvia Morena Garcia, which I've read. The Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi, I've also read that one. Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry, read that. Nona the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, read that. Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. That's the one I should have read, but I haven't read it. And The Spearman by Mary Robinette Cole. I recognize the author, have not read this book or anything by this author, although I recognize the name. Okay, of the books I have read, Daughter of Dr. Moreau, excellent. Should it win Best Novel? I don't know. Kaiju Preservation Society, I actually had some issues with, so I don't think so. Legends and Lattes, it'd be a feel-good win, but as Best Novel, I don't know. Nona the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, that's my pick. That is my pick. The writing is elevated. The voice and characterization are so strong. The story itself, it does seem to meander a bit just for me, and I didn't really like the interludes. I thought it took me out of the story, and the story is so complicated that sometimes I got a little lost following it. But again, the writing, the voice, the skill of Tamsin Muir, I would like to see Nona the Ninth win for Best Novel. So those are the nominees. How many of the nominated novels have you read, and which one do you want to see win? Let me know down in the comments, and while you're there, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. We'll have to wait to see who the winners are when the Chengdu Worldcon votes during the third week of October. Until we meet again, may all the books you read live long and prosper.